All right, team, we are back in the Fireside PM podcast, and we're going to do a startup spotlight episode. I have Stephen Wren, who's a co-founder and CEO of Palatial. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're joining from New York City, right?
Yep, calling in from Lower Manhattan.
Love it. Tell us a little bit about, we'll get into Palatial for sure, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up, starting a company.
Yeah, so I actually grew up wanting to be an architect. And so I went to school at Cornell. I studied architecture there for my undergrad. But during that degree, I sort of discovered that I was more interested in the process of converting designs into digital twins that represented real things in virtual space. And I think that all started when I was selected to be part of a studio under this professor called Don Greenberg. And Don Greenberg was a professor at the computer graphics department at Cornell. And he's like this OG that kind of was one of the original inventors of computer graphics. And so he was always like trying to find a way to get architects to work together with the CS people. And so he started the studio where he brought together all those disciplinary groups of CS people, human interaction, and architects to do these research projects on how the most advanced technology like VR, AR could be applied to design. And so that really opened my eyes to like what immersive tech and just like real-time rendering could do for visualizing and communicating spaces.
Tell us a little bit more, Stephen, about how that happens today, because my exposure to architectural projects is often, there's some beautiful watercolor pictures, and then there's this physical model, and they're like, oh, this will be the new engineering center at such and such university.
Yeah.
And they have like little pictures of people walking around the quad or whatever.
Yeah,
it sounds like we've come a long way.
They still do that, especially at the more traditional architecture firms. But a lot of the times now it's just like they model the design in a 3D modeling software like Rhino or Revit. Revit is actually more popular these days because you're not only designing the shapes, but you're also like in a way defining what are the lists of materials that need to go into this building to actually construct it. So that once you actually complete that model, it just becomes like a shopping list for the engineers to go and analyze and then contract out. So as part of this process, the architects needed to communicate that design to a lot of different stakeholders, whether that's like the clients or the engineers or any number of consultants. And that's where visualization comes in really handy, because then you can now put people in a headset and they can instantly understand like some quality of the space that you wouldn't be able to read in a plan unless you're a really experienced architect. And so it sort of brings everyone to the table and gives them that sort of instant understanding. I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, that's super cool. So then does that allow the architect to take a more iterative approach to the design? Like, do they get that feedback? It's kind of like a usability study, and then they're like, oh, everybody's complaining about it feeling too small in the entrance, or they want more natural light, blah blah blah. So that you can.
It's a blessing and a curse, because as soon as the customers or the clients they see that, they already have they always have like 100 different points of feedback.
Yeah,
and some of them are really ridiculous. And so, it's one good because it helps sell the idea and gets buy-in. And they also just want to have more changes.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that being a double-edged sword. Was it be fair to say that most big projects now do that, where they give the customer early previews and are open to a more collaborative process, or is it more the other way where it's like, ta-da, here's the final.
No, it's definitely more collaborative, but there's like,
Mm.
there's a really fine line that you have to ride where like, as the project progresses from concept to further along, you show it, bless you, in progressively more detail. So in the beginning, if it's still in like the concept ideation phase, you don't want to show like a photorealistic render. Otherwise, they're gonna say like, where's the office space? Like, and then you're still trying to get the building positioning right. So it's like matching the visualization fidelity with the stage of the idea.
Yeah, we actually you see that in like regular software development projects too, where if you show the SVP or the CEO like really high res mocks, like early, and they like it, like you have to build what you showed them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting how there's some similarities there. So
yeah, it's just like how much effort you put into the presentation subconsciously hints at how serious you want to take every detail.
Yeah. So how did you go from working with this professor on those kinds of projects to deciding to start a company?
Well, so when I was I was at Tesla for a little bit, and I helped. I was on the Gigafactory team. So this is when they were trying to scale up the Gigafactory to produce Model 3s, and this was meant to be the biggest building in the world.
Yeah.
And they were building new sections every few months, and I was trying to help them get a sense of how the different pieces fit together, because things were moving so fast, you would have situations where they would pour the floor slab for one of the sections, and they would realize that an elevator had to go through it. They would have to take those jackhammers and drill out a section of the floor. And I was just like, this is such a messy process, and it's because all of the different engineers, they were looking at sections of the models and they didn't really have a holistic understanding of what they were building. And meanwhile, there's like only a few people that kind of knew the overall vision of this giant machine that designed the machine. And so I figured, I've been working with game engines a lot, and they're really capable, like something like Unreal Engine. They're capable of displaying millions of different pieces of geometry together. And so I put together this pipeline that took basically all the CAD designs they had, whether that was Revit or SolidWorks or some other format, and optimize it and convert it into this Unreal Engine level, basically a big game that then they could fly around and see how everything fit together. And that was actually really useful for them, because then they could sort of like show and hide different parts of it to see like, oh, this is what it would look like once in a few months when this section goes up. And yeah, so that was really helpful. And then they ended up using it to create a video for like to show the company like what the vision of the factory was.
Yeah. Wow. Congrats. So then at that point you were like, oh, I should build a company around this capability, and I'll build it.
Yeah. I was like, at that point I realized that like, this is really what I want to do in the future. I want to be able to sort of use these digital twins, these simulations, to be able to help people understand or use, like, train or design different spaces. And then I sort of went in after school. I went into sort of this field of creating digital twins. I worked at a CG company called Volley Studio, and they were basically taking customer data like BIM models and then creating either visualizations for like walkthroughs, so that's like VR experiences, or web walkthroughs, or they were sort of creating marketing material from them, and they all needed to convert this like sort of super detailed engineering model into the into a really fast running simulation. And so after working there for a couple of years, I built a similar pipeline to what I did at Tesla, but it was more mature. And we decided to spin that off as a separate company that just focused on that piece. And that's what became Palatial.
Okay, so is Palatial independent of that original? Does that other company have any ownership of Palatial?
They invested in us.
Okay.
So, and Mike Klausmeier, he's one of the co-founders. So like he is on our board, and like he's been very supportive over the past few years.
Got it. Love it. Okay, so a lot of times a startup will have this kind of breakthrough inspiration and vision, and then like, reality and new things pop up, and they kind of evolve.
Yeah.
Have you all been on a straight line from that original plan, or what's been the journey like?
Definitely not. I would say it's been like a really winding journey. So this was like when we started this was like 2022. And we initially wanted to, target the whole pipeline, like going from model on someone's engineering software or design software directly into a usable digital twin. And that was like incredibly ambitious because one, everyone works every software is different, has a different like workflow, and everyone uses the software differently. So like you have very wacky like situations where people set up their levels in an extremely complicated way, and like you have to be able to take all of that, conform it into basically a different language. I think about it like translation, where like engineers talk in one language, the game developers talk in a different language, and you have to make that translation. And a lot of times that's like a foundational difference in how you organize the structure of the scene or the data formats. And so in trying to do that, we were initially trying to make a cloud platform, which someone uploads the file and they get back the finished product, the finished web stream. It was like a thing that you could open up on any browser. And we ran into a few issues with that because it kept failing because people workflows were too different. So then like about a year in, we decided that, okay, well, based on our sort of all of our interviews and our user testing, the problem with this whole process, the problem piece that we had identified was optimization. Like, how do we make these scenes run faster? It's not like how do we make the whole how do we make the VR experience better, or how do we make the web stream better? It's about optimization. So then we focused in on that one piece, and then we also realized that people wanted more control over the final result and wanted to be part of that process instead of having it like a black box. That you just get the result at the end. So we made it into a plugin that went directly into Unreal Engine. So people would load their level or their file into Unreal Engine, and then they would sort of have an interface to be able to analyze. It's like have you used the software called CCleaner? Where it analyzes your computer. It's like those softwares where you scan your computer and then it tells you like this is what's making it slow.
Oh yeah. Years ago, I remember those. Yeah.
It's kind of like that, but for your 3D scene.
Okay.
Where it'll scan your entire project and say like, well, these are the 5 things that we've identified that are making your project run slowly. You can fix them one by one, or you can batch run all of them together. And then by clicking these few buttons, even if you don't understand what's going on, the idea is that you can arrive at a much more optimized project and also better looking sometimes, because we fix things like lighting. Yeah, and that was the product that we built out, and it's actually in beta right now. So this is something that people can download and try it out today.
Okay, so to be clear, the original vision was someone has a design using some CAD tool, and then they'd upload that, and then they download this finished product that then they could play around with on the web or whatever.
Yeah, so they would download either the finished game essentially, share, or it would be a link that they could send to people and share.
Okay, and it sounds like you discovered a few things. One was that everybody uses these CAD tools in a slightly different way, and there's some variability in the way the files are coming to you, such that it's not just like a one-click process where you just output the thing for them. And then it sounds like the second thing was they wanted to have a little more say in how the final product came out. So then the new version of Palatial is you help optimize the files, and then you give them the power to tweak it in the gaming platform, the Unreal.
Yeah, I mean, we basically just do the optimize. We give them the buttons to click to do each piece of each part of the optimization. So then they could choose not to do parts of it if they don't want to. And
could you show us, Stephen, what like, hey, look, this is something that you can do in CAD, and now I'm going to use Palatial and turn this thing into some interactive experience.
Sure.
Because I think I understand like on a whiteboard level, but I'd love
Yeah.
to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I have a quick demo pulled up here.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. How do I share? All right. See this?
Yes, I do. Little black floor building.
Yeah. So this is a 3D model of our office. Actually, it's not as nice as this, but like it's and also it's not like the most high fidelity model, because this was constructed in a architecture software called Rhino.
Okay.
And when you import it from Rhino, a lot of the stuff gets messed up, like the textures, like the lighting is messed up, and so our software is designed to both make it run faster and also make it look better, like to fix some of these issues.
What would be an issue? I mean, it looks fine to me. What would be an example of an issue with the Rhino software right now that we're looking
Right.
at?
So one of the examples was like these pipes that they're completely black. You can't really tell any depth from them.
I see.
So and it's because that there's a specific issue with the materials from Rhino that come in, where the diffuse channel, which is the sort of the color of it, is completely black, and you have to basically just bump it up slightly to get any color.
Okay.
And there's like a million of these tiny issues that you would deal with as a 3D artist. And our job, to be clear, is not to replace the 3D artist, because I think there's a bit of like artistic direction that goes into making these experiences. It's more to like augment and make the really annoying parts easier to do. And when I say annoying parts, I mean like, so for example, I've already analyzed the scene, but like if I were to click this button, this wouldn't have been populated before. This would have been empty, and this basically runs our custom scripts in the background and then looks for like scans the scene for optimization opportunities, and it'll come back in a few seconds with the results that are listed out here. And then you can click on each. These are each we call them operations, which are like actions that you can apply to a 3D environment to transform it in some way to conform it to the best practice standards for game engine development.
Stephen, while we're letting that run, I'm curious, what's your view on the direction of products like, is this called Rhino? Is that what you called it?
This is Unreal Engine, actually. So this is the game engine that you would run the you would actually create the digital twins in.
Okay. So where do you think Unreal Engine is going in the world of generative AI? Do you think there's a world where I can just say, hey, make the overhead pipe shiny stainless steel instead of all black, and it just
I think we're definitely going in that direction. I mean, and there's actually two different paths that people are taking. There's the path of general diffusion, where it's coming up. This is a kind of a replacement for Unreal Engine. It's not going through the traditional rendering path of 3D geometry being rasterized and then going into a rendering pipeline. It's more like you start with noise and then you end up with something that is visually consistent, and then you can, based on the training, be able to interact with it by inputting things on your keyboard. And that, I think there will be a segment of the market that is replaced, that currently Unreal occupies, that will be replaced by that kind of solution, where it's just like a generative, it's like a Midjourney or VO2 or some other like video model that's just running it live in real time as you're interacting with it. And I think that's great. And then there's another path, which is reasoning, which is given this a screenshot of this and a language model behind it, can you tell the Sonnet model to learn how to model, use the tools that humans do and model it, or like change the scene by clicking buttons.
Right.
Yeah, and that is what you were kind of referring to, which is like, I want to be able to change the pipe to this color. I enter a text command, and then it would go and do it for me, as opposed to me clicking the buttons myself.
Cool. All right. Well, it sounds like there probably both of those worlds will exist, where you start with the blank slate and it just creates it, and then we use AI to kind of as a mechanism to interact with existing tools a little bit more easily. Regardless, you guys pick up where those leave off, where you have the design and now you're optimizing it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So this, the tools we made basically like allow you to visualize what the script would do before you apply it. And this is kind of like building trust with the user about like, because instead of them clicking a button and being afraid that it'll destroy their project, it will tell you, okay, these are the 5 things so this is merging. So in order to make the scene perform faster, we want to consolidate the number of objects, make sure that there's fewer bigger objects that can be rendered faster. So these are the 4 things that we have identified in the scene that can be merged, and we can select all of them and apply this to the scene, and then it'll just merge all of them and then replace every single copy of that merged object in the scene.
All right. And then where do we how do we turn this into this interactive web movie or video thing?
Well, okay, so that actually happens on sort of the cloud version. So the plugin only assists with optimization. So then it's up to the developer to, I don't know, package the game or to send it off to another service to turn it into a web stream. What we had built out, which was the ability to basically upload this project, and then that's where you would, once you put the project on and upload the file. I'm not going to do this right now, but you basically create a project that processes it in the cloud, and then you end up with something like this, which is a web stream that you can then load on your phone or something.
So most architects, are they now comfortable using Unreal Engine to create that gamified thing, or is that like a new skill that they will need to learn?
There's actually a lot of architects that are learning this right now. And actually a lot of architects starting companies doing this, because I think there's a big demand for it. But it's also something that, like I said, has artistic direction, like even in the way you design it. Everyone wants to have a say about like how the buttons or how the controls work. So it's not really a one size fits all solution. So this is something that one of our like user testers uploaded, where he had exported this straight from 3ds Max, and then this was processed on our cloud machine, and then it ended up as this thing that you can then walk around in, change the lighting for, and take pictures of.
Very cool. Now, when I see this, the first thing that comes to my mind is, oh, well, wouldn't this be on the roadmap for whatever tool your customer used before they uploaded it? Why wouldn't this capability be something that creation or editing tool would just add on as like, oh, now there's a button where you can create this, video preview or interactive preview?
Yeah, I mean, that is a thing that is being done. It's like so there's a lot of plugins being built into the design softwares themselves that are allow you to, like, pretty much in one click be able to preview it in not as high quality, obviously, but like in a sort of semi-realistic way, without having to go through sort of this giant process. But it's less controllable, and it you can't really do as much with it.
Got it. So your positioning is that, hey, these native design tools will likely have basic kind of preview or, capabilities where people can see some basic versions of the output. But when they use Palatial, if they really want to fine tune it and tweak how it presents, that's what you guys are going to be the best in the world at. Is that
well? Okay, so this is actually like pre-pivot.
Oh, we haven't gotten to the okay. Got you.
Okay. Yeah, because see, like I said, we've been on a pretty winding journey.
Yeah, I love it.
So we made the optimization plugin, and I think a lot of people are using it and happy with it. But we realized that, okay, there is actually a use case for this sort of cloud-based processing that does have a lot of need and is less variable than sort of any architect or any designer uploading their files. And that is the simulation use case, like specifically creating simulations for robot training. So if you think about all of these, big companies trying to make humanoid robots or trying to make like these dogs or whatever format they're doing, they basically need to train these robots in the simulations, have them run what is called training episodes, where they do trial and error, and try to accomplish a task in the simulation and run it 1,000 times until they're successful, and then arrive at a model that they then load into the real robot and have it be able to do the same thing in the real world. And so this is a use case where you still need virtual worlds. You still need optimized environments that run fast on cloud servers, but the opportunity here is that you need like thousands of them. It's not just one artist making one scene and showing it off. You need like hundreds of thousands of environments to be able to teach the robot all the different variations of the world that it could come across. And a lot of the times, like, these environments aren't really that different structurally. It's more about like variations to the scene. So that's really an ideal use case for what we had built, because it's a similar format in one pipeline that you run it a lot of times, and you output a lot of different scenes.
Okay, so we started out with, hey, we're going to help you make these interactive experiences for your architectural design. And what I'm hearing is now we're going into, hey, a bigger need is not about one design for one architect, but a robot developer that needs to make sure their indoor vacuum cleaner works on 1,000 different home layouts and ranches and condo buildings, multi-story, blah blah blah. And so Palatial, so what do those robot developers use now? Like, how do they do it now, and then how will they do it with you guys?
It's funny because like I would have expected that they would have some clever solution, but they actually just hired 3D artists to do this. And like a lot of these teams, they have like full-time 3D artists, or the machine learning engineers or AI developers will take part of their day to create these scenes, which not to like bash on them, but they're not like, that's not what they want to do, and they're not very good at it. So they're trying to do what these architects do, and they're having to hire people to do it. But it's the same problem essentially, but at a much larger scale.
So just brainstorming, wouldn't there then be a player that says, hey, we have 10,000 pre-created models that you can license, and then they can just license that to like a bunch of different robot developers, versus each robot developer having to create custom ones?
Yeah, I mean, so to be fair, like there are some like platforms out there that allow you to sort of procedurally generate these scenes. There's actually quite a few of them. And they basically like do what you said, which is like having a library of different assets that are predefined that they've created, and then you sort of type in the chat like I want a city street environment.
Right.
And it'll populate that environment, and and I think that is a good start because and the reason I say that is because someone has had to create that procedural rule set to define what is a city street environment and how
Hmm.
you scatter things within that to
Yeah.
match this. But and like I think every time that you need a new situation, that's where this process kind of breaks down because some artist now it has to be a technical artist because they have to know how to do procedural code, has to create new code to generate new situations, uh, and they're using their artistic eye to try to do this, but it's not as close to reality as you would think because you're looking at the and you're just like saying, okay, well, we're going to randomly scatter some bottles on this desk because typically that's what you find on a desk.
Hmm.
It's not really a good match for what you would encounter in real life.
Yeah. So in a palatial world, let's say I'm a robot developer and I've got this next generation like iRobot cleaning thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, I heard you guys help with, these simulated environments so I can test and tune my robot. How would I work with Palatial? What's the value prop like? What's your solution?
Yeah, so I would say that our sort of key insight is that instead of doing this procedural scattering, we want to be able to transform real environments and real objects into the simulation. So kind of what I've been working on since I was in school, which is
Yeah.
like being able to pull from real data that is of buildings that were constructed or existing scenes and mapping that one-to-one into a digital twin. So like not
Mhm.
procedurally populated randomly, but so like by doing that, you sort of bake in a lot of these sort of hidden patterns that I would say hidden patterns that you would otherwise be missing from the real data for them
Yeah.
to pick up by themselves.
And so let's say you do that. You take these real images, and in our example, you're able to create this massive universe of indoor environments for home cleaning devices to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
Once you do that, is the model then that's resold to multiple robot developers, or is there a need for the robot developers to customize their environments? Because they all, the ones that are selling the indoor robot cleaning devices, wouldn't they all want the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's it kind of depends because some users are really focused on privacy and they're working with proprietary parts in a factory and they don't want to
Mhm.
share that data. Some people are just working with everyday objects and they're fine sharing the data. So I think there's a two-pronged approach there, like where you offer the service as like an on-demand generation service where
Mhm.
you create the assets, you create the scenes that are then loaded custom for this company, or it's like pulling from a library of existing assets and supplementing it if needed with the generation.
Okay, so your magic sauce is that any robot development team can say, hey, either A, I want to pull from your pre-developed library of standard area environments, or I'm building this robot for this very advanced manufacturing facility. Uh, I'm going to give you a bunch of pictures of it, and
Yep.
then you turn it into the most realistic rendering or whatever, so that I can then test my robot how it will operate in this environment.
Yeah, and I think testing is a great word to use because it's not just about generating data for training models. It's
Yeah,
also about validation.
yeah,
And a lot of companies they spend millions of dollars running validation models before they deploy them in the real world. And these validations, like ideally, you can run them in simulation and catch most of the errors. But in order for the simulations to be reliable in catching these things, they have to match reality as much as possible.
And Stephen, when investors ask you about your moat and how you'll stay competitive once everybody realizes what a big opportunity this is, like what do you say?
Well, I think in the world of AI and model development, like there is no such thing as a technological moat. Like you release something and then it'll be reverse engineered in a few months.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the moat is speed, like having a nimble team that is able to iterate really, really quickly and find uh, the the use cases and create products that will serve that need as quickly as possible and adapt to the changing needs. And
Yeah.
so, and I also think that the flexibility is a big part, because I think a lot of companies are trying to create like all-in-one solutions where
Mm-hmm.
you adopt the whole stack or you don't do it at all, and they control everything. But I think our approach is really to make it into a plug and play thing. So we're going to offer this as an API, so that teams can build our generation or sort of for objects or scenes into their existing pipeline, and just use that piece while using their existing training workflow for the rest of it. So that allows, if your team has really good simulation code for running physics or something, and you want to sort of take advantage of that and not have to like throw that away, I think that's great, and it allows us to sort of embed into those customers.
I love it. So it sounds, let me play back what I'm hearing. It sounds like this is a bet that if you believe in this mega trend of there being a imminent proliferation of robotic uh, items or products out there, that every one of those guys and gals is going to need to train and then test their robots, because they'll get way more cockpit hours doing it that way than bringing it to people's houses and testing it one by one.
Yeah.
And you guys are going to be like, that's no problem. We're the ones that can help you create the most realistic and the fastest environments to test and train your robots. And you don't want to build that on your own. Just use Palatial.
Precisely.
Okay, gotcha. So where are you in the company? Like when did this pivot happen? Have you is it you have any customers? Like where are you in the development process?
Yeah, so we sort of started this pivot at the end of last year, and so we've been at it for only a few months.
Mm-hmm.
But we already have a pretty good amount of progress. We have an MVP build of this sort of. So we're starting at the assets, so like creating the objects that perform well in simulators.
Yeah.
Right now, most objects, they don't really behave. They don't have physics metadata associated with them. So if you drop them, they'll have like default weight and they won't bounce correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've made a pipeline that allows you to generate 3D models, but with this metadata and with the correct format to load directly into the simulator, so that they will perform, they will behave accurately. So we already have that as an MVP. And then the next thing that we're going to work on is, once we have this pushed out as a thing that people can use, we're going to start using the assets that we've generated and creating scenes with them. And then that'll sort of bridge into the optimization piece, where once we have the scenes, we optimize it, and then we ship it off to the company to put into whatever simulator they want to run it in.
And when you think about potential customers for this service, it seems like there's going to be robots for anything you can think of. Like, what do you think will be the biggest areas of interest for Palatial in terms of customer types?
Well, I think the biggest hole in the market right now is sort of addressing manipulation tasks. So robots that need to physically touch something, because like navigation in robotics is more trivial. It's not trivial, but it's more of a solved problem. Like you can have more traditional algorithms take you from point A to point B, and you don't necessarily need a simulation to test or to generate training data for that. But if you want an object or a robot to be able to reliably pick up an apple or like a marker, like that is something that works much better when you use a deep learning approach that is driven by data. And it's just got so much more complexity. And right now, the simulations really are bad at handling that. And that applies to both like factory robot arms that are picking up packages and sorting them, or humanoids picking up regular everyday objects around the home.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement around the humanoid robot that will do my unload the dishwasher, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In your view, where do you think the most robotic kind of actual activity is going to be? Do you think it's going to be like, we'll every house has a humanoid robot, or is it more on the industrial manufacturing, that kind of stuff?
Well, I certainly would buy one if it was in the home. Like, I hate doing laundry. But yeah, I think it'll definitely start in the industrial settings because it's more about safety, right? Like if these robots, especially the bipedal ones, like they can fall over and you don't want it to crush a baby. Right? That would be a PR disaster. So they're definitely like going to start deploying them in for situations where you really don't want a person to be there, or it's like repetitive, dangerous, or boring. Right.
Yeah.
So that's like at a distribution center or a factory line, or doing some, I don't know, I guess safe search and rescue and that kind of stuff is also being explored.
Fascinating.
Over time, it will make its way into the house. And I think that's where a lot of the value will be realized. But I don't want to underplay the manufacturing stuff. Like, I think you'll have fully automated factories with these robots working together with traditional robots. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how many years away do you think we are from, let's say, factories built in America where they're producing high quality products and they only have like 10 or 20 humans that actually work there?
10 or 20 people.
Is that like 10 years from now?
We're 10 years away. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
10 years.
Okay.
Because I think it'll be like the people to robot ratio would go down over time, as they become more reliable. At first, you're going to have a lot of babysitters. Maybe the amount of people in the factory will actually go up because
somebody's got to fix all these broken robots. Yeah.
But as the kinks get worked out, that'll drop dramatically.
Yeah, and you're pretty confident but even 10 years is not that far away.
Yeah. And I think like we're in it for the long run. And I think there's like a statistic that I think really hits home when it comes to thinking about simulations and how it plays into this, which is there's like around an 8,000 time differential between the data used to train the latest language models and the latest robotics models. So the latest robotics models use 8,000 times less data.
Wow.
Because
they don't have it, or because they don't need it?
Because they don't have it.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a whole internet of data that people have put out over the years.
Yeah.
There's nothing to mine. And so somehow they have to come up with this data. And people have been collecting this data for years. And so this example that I'm saying from GTC earlier this year, they had spent 7 years collecting 200,000 hours of data. And so if you project that out, that trend line, it will take them 50,000 years to catch up to the latest language models. So the only real way to solve this problem is through simulations and generating synthetic data.
Fascinating. Okay, so the way we train the regular large language models where we just crawled the internet, you really can't do that for these physical environments. And therefore, the best we can do is we start with a bunch of pictures, pump it into Palatial, and then you extrapolate into like 1,000 different permutations of that are realistic and used for training and testing.
And like, thinking about like there's actually a lot of data out there about the physical world from 2D images and videos.
Yeah.
You have to build that pipeline to extract that and turn it into environments that can be used for training.
Yeah.
I mean, and also like you can still use the 2D for training to some extent, but it'll be part of the data mix for the models.
That's fascinating. Do you think there's a business in owning that data, or is that a commodity and it's all going to be about what you do with the data and how you turn it into these environments? Like, because like with the large models, they just crawled a bunch of public data and that was good enough. And I'm sure I know people are suing the model companies, but is that the path we're going to end up with, you know, data for these, you know, training models for robots?
Well, do AI companies today hoard this data? I think that they probably do.
Yeah.
But I think things are increasingly moving towards like using that data and extracting additional data from it, like through synthetic means. So like once you have this corpus of internet scale data, how do you use it to generate the logic traces? And then that secondary processing step is then used to feed into the model more and more these days. And so I think we'll probably go through like a similar thing with physical data, where you have this corpus of image, video data about the world, and then they have to be refined somehow into synthetic, both scenes and assets, but also trajectories. Trajectories as in like the path that the robot arm takes to perform a certain action. And you have millions of these for each, or thousands of these for each action, and then millions for all sorts of actions.
Super interesting. You mentioned earlier that, hey, in today's world, there really aren't technical moats anymore. People will figure out and reverse engineer. Is there any intellectual property or patents or anything that or is it purely like this is a race, whoever goes fastest and, you know, builds credibility first, like they'll win and they'll just keep running faster every year?
I mean, I think there's room for intellectual property in like how fast you can make the engine go to run this data pipeline, and but I think the speed is really the only differentiator in my opinion, because even if you have the patents, I think like the models will find a different way around it.
Yeah.
and you can just look at DeepSeek and like how like their speed to innovation and actually the constraints that they had with GPUs allowed them to move faster and do better engineering to, you know, catch up.
Yeah, I wonder if in this world there'll be a premium for maybe in this world there's probably a premium for the most accurate, realistic, and the most comprehensive environments, where like if I'm using ChatGPT versus Claude or Gemini, you know, they're all pretty good. But if I'm a robot developer and I'm like, well, if I use Palatial, it's the most realistic, it's the most likely for me to catch all my bugs and to have the best trained model for my robot. I would imagine I would pay a premium for that versus the other Palatial, you know, competitor that's kind of like maybe a little cheaper but isn't as comprehensive, or the models aren't as accurate or whatever.
Yeah, I think like customizing the generation to serve different use cases and specifically making it more realistic is the top priority for us.
Yeah.
Because if you it's like there's no point in generating the data if it's not going to match reality, because like you can generate as much crappy data today as possible, and it's like a oversweetened candy. Like you don't want it. You can make.
You're like building a flight simulator. Like you want that thing to be freaking accurate. If you're designing a plane, you want that flight simulator to be as accurate as possible. Anything? Well, this has been a fantastic convo, Stephen. I really appreciate it. What else do you want to share for folks watching that are learning more about you and Palatial? Anything you want to let them know if they want to learn more or connect with you?
Yeah. So we're obviously like working in the background on a few different things that we'll be ready to show in I would say like a few months. But until then, I would invite anyone who is like interested in simulations or robotics to come to our website and click the email us with your resume to join the team, because we are we're looking for people who are going to build the data infrastructure for the billions of robots that will be walking amongst us in the future.
I love it. Yeah, coincidentally, I was a SPV investor in a robotics company called Somatic, and it's like a bathroom cleaning robot that's designed for like hospitals and office buildings and stuff like that. I guess the pitch to them would be, hey, you need to test this model on all different kinds of bathroom layouts and designs, and urinal, no urinal, stalls that are tall, whatever, weird doors. Palatial can help you, come up with 1,000 different permutations that are realistic.
Yeah, just have your engineers go to every single toilet and take a picture.
But that would be the thing they would need to do. They would need to take the pictures to give to you, right?
Yeah, I mean, like eventually this will be on board the robots. So like it'll be like this live thing where the robots, as they're walking around, they view the world, they live translate that into the digital twin, and then perform training in the background. And then that's where you get like learning robots that evolve over time.
Right.
And we're many years away from that.
And is that kind of what Tesla does with the self-driving stuff? Like they basically use their own video from people driving around?
Yeah. They collect. They have a giant, like these vehicles. They collect terabytes of data, and then they upload them at night when the cars are back in the garage. And then, but they're not doing it. They're not processing it live. But they go back to the Tesla servers, and then they like select the highest quality data from the data that comes in, and then use it to train their models. Yeah.
Love it. So where should they go to learn more and connect with you, Stephen? Is it, what's the address?
Yeah, it's palatialxr.com.
Palatialxr.com. Yeah, I might as well.
And I will say, so like right now we are raising our pre-seed round. So if there are any investors listening, we would love to have you participate.
Love it. Yeah. This is not an official fundraising communication, but if you think robotics are a big deal and you think they're going to need to be trained and tested at scale with realism, feel free to look more into Palatial and maybe connect with Stephen for ways to collaborate. I love it.
Yeah, please find me on LinkedIn or email me at steven@palatialxr.com.
Brilliant. Anything else that we should hit before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I think that's all. Like, thank you for having me, Tom.
You bet, my friend. It was great talking to you.
By the way.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I need some robot aquarium cleaners. But I appreciate that. Right. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care, Stephen.
Take care, Tom.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Stephen Wren from Palatial. What are my takeaways for you PMs out there? Number one is, what's really fascinating? It's obviously I'm a guy that's been kind of shipping consumer and B2B software all my career. So don't have any experience with robots or architecture, but it's so interesting to learn about new verticals. And it's also interesting to see, like, my sense is the thesis for Palatial is this is a kind of upstream bet on robotics. Like, okay, if you believe that there's going to be all these robots everywhere, then they're going to need to be taught and tuned and tested. And we're not just going to bring these physical robots into new physical spaces. That'll be part of the testing, but we want to be able to train them much faster. And so it sounds to me like Palatial's, they're kind of like a developer tool or a developer kind of service to say, hey, robot company, your robot will be better and you'll get to market faster and you'll have less bugs and a higher performant robot if you train and test on the palatial, in a palatial environment. Now, the one thing that I would say that kind of I think will be something interesting to unpack is like, okay, if they say yes, and then Palatial is like, hey, now go take 1,000,000 pictures, that is a little bit of a friction in the sales process. It would be nice if Palatial could say, oh, yes, you do robotic bathroom cleaners. We have a library of commercial bathrooms. Maybe they already do that. I may have misunderstood. But it also sounds like you can also take pictures and kind of come up with your own environments for even more high fidelity testing. So super cool. I also love the journey that they've been on, how they went from, hey, I was in architecture school, came up with this idea of turning CAD designs into interactive kind of experiences based on these pipelines, built all of that, had the plugin, that was great, but then realized like, well, it's kind of a one and done thing. There's a bigger market maybe around training robots where you need many, many of these environments and you need them all the time. So it would not surprise me if a year from now we have Steven back and there's like some new evolution, but never hurts to bet on a mega trend that people have deep conviction in. And I do think the megatrend of robots becoming commonplace is a good one to bet on. Now, whether or not, those robotic development companies can find another way to do their training and testing, or a way that's like good enough, that I don't know. But, I'm sure this is something that Steven and Palatial have been thinking about for a long time. So with that, I will wrap up. Hopefully you enjoyed this startup spotlight. And if you have other startups that you think are really cool, where founders are willing to be as open and candid and transparent as Steven has been, hit me up and we'll try and get them on the show. All right, let's get back to work. See you later, team.